Folks, Zaide here with another episode of DramaQuest. This is a big one. We're joined by a former Darkpaw Daybreak staff member, Narlee, aka Zoycite. More on that in a second, but really quick, big shout out to Lance and Beef. Thank you for your patronage. You guys are awesome. And Zoycite, it's exciting to have you here. We've chatted a few times, and it's always been really dope. So I'm glad that you decided to come on here, and hopefully no one comes in and beats your door down because you came to talk to the bad guy.
I try to maintain the NDA as best as possible that I have with Daybreak and Darkpaw. I do sit in the CRC as a former dev, so I'm bound by that NDA, but otherwise free to talk about lots of stuff. I've played EverQuest for maybe 20, 25 years. I don't know how many years it is now. It's like, it's just been a part of life for so long. So many, life events have revolved around EverQuest, or EverQuest has revolved around those. I don't know which it is, but it's one of those things.
It sort of like finds all the gaps in your life and it fills them in. And then it takes a little bit more on top of that.
Yeah, especially when I was a lot younger, it would be like, there wouldn't be too much to do except really play EverQuest, and, you'd play all the time. It used to be like, almost 24 hours a day, you could find like a raid to join or something, it'd be like, oh, so-and-so's going and raiding hate, and you've never heard of the people, but they're like, oh, we need people, open roles, whatever. And you'd go and do that, and it'd be a fun time.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I see, before we get too deep in this, I see you wearing the Twitch shirt, and I've talked to you and watch your stream. Can you shout out your stream for us so the viewers can check you out?
Yeah, it's Twitch TV/Zoycite.
Okay.
That's been, or was, my original character's name in EQ. I've had to change it a couple times, but still same character.
And you mostly stream cutting edge live EQ raid content, like retail stuff, right?
Correct. I think Project 99 is cool, but it's so hard for me to find time for more than one character, and so it's just, that's what I do.
You know what? We don't have to pretend that Project 1999 is cool here, just so you know.
I think it actually is. I mean, It's a huge effort.
Yes.
I love that people are dedicated about, preserving the game and history and stuff. And that is phenomenal. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's only becoming part of like the video game zeitgeist in recent years, like the need to protect the history of video games and like the importance of emulation as part of that process, especially like nowadays where you can like pay for a download of a game and then like, oh, we're shutting down the Nintendo Wii store or whatever, and it's like, zapped.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Yeah.
So can you talk to us about how you started playing EQ? You look relatively young, so I assume you played as like a kid, right? A teen?
Yeah, I think I started playing maybe when I was 13, maybe 14 years old.
Yeah.
Not right at launch. I didn't have a computer capable of playing it. But how I got a computer that was capable of playing EverQuest was I actually played the Pokemon card game. Okay. And I was playing the Pokemon card game, winning lots of tournaments, flipping cards, trading, doing the whole card game thing, was pretty successful at it. And I basically sold all my cards about that time when I was about 14.
Rip.
And I bought an Alienware PC. I think it was like what was it? Like a Thunderbird was the processor, maybe something like that back then. Maybe it was Athlon. I can't remember anymore. But got that and one of these, voodoo cards, and went to town on that, and had my own computer when I was 14.
Did you have a Sound Blaster?
Yep.
Oh man, so you got those really good chip tunes back in the day.
Yeah, yep.
So did you buy the computer because you had seen EverQuest, or you bought it because that was like the next place you were going in gaming?
So I had been playing MMOs for a long time. I think I started playing Meridian in about 94 or Meridian 59, for people that don't know that. Um, been somewhat involved with that off and on throughout the years. And so when Ultima Online came out, that was something, that I couldn't participate in because my computer couldn't run it. So I had friends that were playing Ultima Online, and I didn't get to play it till after I had already got EverQuest and everything else. Um,
I imagine at that point it's hard to go back to the 2D kind of.
yeah.
It's hard to imagine a computer nowadays in 2024. It's hard to be like, yeah, my computer couldn't run Ultima. Like, what could it
Yeah.
run? I guess the MS Paint like ski free game, right?
Hey, we got some good, King's Quest and Space Quest gaming
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
I love point and click adventures. They're so much fun.
yeah. Some friends of mine are making one right now. I'm excited to play it.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So you said you got that and you jumped into EQ. Was it a problem for you as a kid dealing with the monthly sub, or were your parents cool with it?
My parents said if I could get a computer, they would cover the subscription price. We were still on dial-up because broadband didn't really even exist when EverQuest came out.
It
But
was like a myth.
yeah, my mom had like internet through work or something for like $2 or $3 a month or something. Um, I mean, we had like AOL and stuff before that, and Prodigy, CompuServe. I even like convinced my parents one time for a birthday, one time to get the Sierra Online Network, Imagination Network. That was tons of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember going out and scavenging for those like AOL like 10,000 hour discs or whatever, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And then I don't know if this is necessary, but I remember I had to like double click AOL and launch it to play EverQuest, like to like start my internet connection. It
yeah.
felt like it's crazy back then. So, what was your first character?
So the first character I think I made was a shaman, and I named it after Garfield's teddy bear Pookie. So that was my first character in EQ. It was on the Prexis server.
Oh, okay. Did you play with Triton eventually?
So when I made that character on Prexis, and yes, I did play with Triton. Um, I think I was playing with them sometime during the Depths of Dark Hollow Prophecy of Ro era is when I was in Triton.
Okay. So you're pretty plugged into things. You're technically savvy. You've got Twitch going on and stuff. You're hip to Discord. I could tell because we talk a little bit. You know that Triton has a Discord called Triton Recruitment Discord, and it's like apparently just full of their apps. Like what kind of boomer shit is that?
Yeah, I have no idea. I joined a guild one time in EverQuest at the time, and I think it was Cestus Die that had an app guild. Like, but this before voice chat was a thing. So they put all the tunes in the app guild because they didn't want, like, I guess the apps to, you know, fraternize with the guild members talking about them or something. I don't know.
Guilds used to be really crazy about culture and stuff like that. I remember that, and like people would have like designated feeder guilds. Like if you do good in this guild, then you can like level up to the real guild.
Yeah, like what is that?
Yeah,
That's like complete nonsense.
yeah. That's crazy. So, how long was it as a player? Like, I assume you were like casual at first, and then after a couple of years, you found yourself in that hardcore realm.
So probably about a couple months before Velius is when I really started to play. Um, and I was kind of working on my epic during Kunark. So I was staying at the 51 to 52 range to get those dragon scales for the Bard epic. So that's what I was doing.
Okay. And did you hit 60? I guess like in that Velius Lucklin era before Pop came out.
Yes.
Mhm. And you said DODH was when you were with Triton. Who were you with before that?
So before Triton, I was in a guild called Leviathan. Leviathan was one of the guilds on Stormhammer.
Hmm.
And I applied to them shortly after they allowed server transfers with gear, and that the Stormhammer was going away. And so they were transferring to a new server that had just spun up for Gates of Discord, called Morden Rasp.
Yeah. Was
And so,
Stormhammer the extra money server?
yes, that was the Legend
The
server.
Legend server. What was that like? That must have been so cool.
I I did not actually play on Stormhammer with them,
Hmm.
um, but I was in the guild that was there. They were basically Township Rebellion's rival, because Township Rebellion was also on Stormhammer.
Yeah. Did you ever play with TR?
Yes, I did. Actually, before I joined SR, I joined TR. I didn't have an intention to actually join TR. Um, there's probably a bit of a long story here. So prior to going over to the Luckland server at that time, um, I I mentioned Cessus Die in the app guild and stuff. Obviously, I was in that guild. Awesome guild, great people. Um, just outstanding experience. Um, However, after Underfoot had come out, the and maybe a couple expansions prior, we were having nights where we weren't making the numbers. Okay, and I was like, this isn't a fun experience for me. They're raiding on Saturday. I don't like raiding on Saturday because I want to go play board games. And so, uh, you know, I reached out to some friends that I knew in Crimson Tempest at the time, because they had tried to get me to come over there. And so I was like, well, hey, you know, what's up? I want to transfer. They're like, cool, Bard, come along. You know, no problem. Uh, was in Crimson Tempest, fairly active for about 7 or 8 years in
What
Crimson
expand?
Tempest.
Were you there? They won Seeds of Destruction, right?
I think so. I think so. So I had some friends from Cessus Die that had basically left, and
Hmm.
I was like, "Hey, is that Crimson Tempest guild you went to any good? What's it like? I like being loyal to this guild, that I'm in, the Cessus Die guild. You know, I have a lot of friends here too, but I also want to experience more of the game, kind of thing."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, you should just come along. You'll have a great time. We need talented players, blah blah blah, whole 9 yards."
So you've been in basically like a roadmap of ultra high end guilds over the years. I don't know
Yes.
if I've met another person that has been in so many of guilds that were like at one point top or right next to the top of the game in EQ.
Yeah, either competing with, in the top guild on the server, or competing with the top guild on the server, or
I
I
mean, like a lot
mean,
of times, like some of those guilds were like top guilds in the world across all servers, right? Like TR
yes,
was for a little bit, CT was obviously right now, SR is.
right. And so what had happened in Crimson Tempest, this is where the story gets kind of shaggy. Like, I was doing their website and helping update their DKP software and stuff, and just having fun with it. Well, I was really busy at work, and I decided that, hey, maybe I need to take a break from EverQuest, and I really didn't enjoy the Darkened Sea expansion so much. So I was like, okay, I wasn't having fun with this. And then I was in the TBM beta, and we were doing the beta raids and stuff like that. And I'd run through all the quests and yada yada, being a good little beta raider person, right? And I mean, getting all the infos for the guilds, the elite strats, posting on the forums, this and that. And I after experiencing several of the raids, they weren't appealing to me. So I was like, okay, let's take a step, focus on real life. EverQuest will still be there. You know, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, whatever. So I missed a couple of expansions. Focusing on real life. And then, uh, long story short, I found myself working at Daybreak during this kind of period. Okay, I and when I went to work for Daybreak, um, at this time, it wasn't the first time that I had been offered a position within Daybreak or SOE or whatever. Um, anyway, I get to Daybreak working on H1Z1. Okay, I was doing like build deployment DevOps type stuff for H1Z1. Play a lot of PlayStation 4 work.
What what
Um,
what year was this? Like
ooh,
2014 ish, 2015 in that time frame.
I think it was maybe 2016, 2017.
So Holly was still the boss at that time. I heard
Yeah,
that H1Z1 was like the place to be.
yeah, they
Like you
were
guys were
lighting.
making more money than every other game combined at the studio at that time.
I literally think we would just go outside at lunch, fill a dumpster full of cash, and light it on fire, and then drink a beer from the kegerator.
Yeah,
I swear, I think that actually happened more than once.
yeah. I mean, I heard it was like amazing at that time. So, and then what do you think they did with all that? I guess you probably can't comment, but it always seems like the games that make money don't get that money invested back into them. You know what I mean?
Well, there was a lot of operating expenses. The H1Z1 team was maybe like 90% of the studio out in San Diego, right? So that's a lot of salaries. Obviously, as things started to go down, people started to leave. There were layoffs, things like that, not good things
Right.
because, you know, there's not the money there, right?
I don't want to get too far into H1Z1, but I'm kind of curious, like internally, why do you feel like it didn't kind of keep up with the genre and move in that battle royale direction? Like some of these really popped up after H1Z1 was kind of already in the rear view.
So the designers committed a cardinal sin, okay? They had a successful game and they revamped the core mechanics of that game in such a way that the player said this is bad and they took way too long to pivot. And when they eventually did, you already had, competitors that had moved into the space like Fortnite and,
PUBG and shit.
PUBG and every other little battle royale that's popping up, every other day.
Now SOE and Daybreak sort of not Daybreak so much, but SOE kind of has a history of doing this shit, right? Like Star Wars Galaxy's combat system, the Matrix Online, they did the same thing, right? Like they would
Hmm.
get these MMOs that are like, doing pretty good, and they would like make some really core change that everyone hated and like literally destroy the game. What drives that? And just not just within the company, but in the industry, because you see that happen all over the place. Why is that like the good idea fairy just taking a
I,
toll?
I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like, hey, we need to add new things to this system, but we made it in such a way that, to add the things just breaks everything, or, it's just not feasible because we're talking about now a game like, I hate to bring H1Z1 up again, but like a game like that is a content pipeline driven game. They've got to be producing a new skin, a new gun, a new map or whatever every, so many weeks, right? On H1Z1 it was probably about weekly things were coming out. It was so crazy. So we're having basically the downtime of EverQuest has monthly and what goes into a patch because there's so many people on the project, we're having that times like 20, okay, go into the game and we're doing that every single week.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned that you had previous offers before you accepted that one. How do you just get an offer? Like I've never had a real job. I'm like a
Okay.
Fed, right? So I don't understand how job offers work.
Okay. So, um, by the time I had applied for the EverQuest position, I had already kind of got my start in games, which we can talk about in a minute. But um, during that process, I went to a few parties, met a few people. One of the people that I met's name was Keith Turkowski. I think his dev name was Murdoch. Long time ago, like underfoot type era type dev. Okay, uh, So I met him. We made good friends at these parties. I was bringing like all these cool retro emulator Nintendo things that I would build, with original controllers, and we're playing like these frame exact emulators, that I've built on a TV and stuff like that, and like the 08, 09 eras. That was like, holy cow, you could do this, kind of stuff. So, we made good friends doing stuff like that. And
Do you still own a CRT?
um,
You strike me
no,
as the type of person that might want that perfect level of like playing the old games, you know?
I do not.
Ah,
However, I do invest quite a bit in mods to original hardware that do like HDMI output or things like that.
yeah, baby.
Lagless. Yeah,
Got like the RGB mods for like your
yeah.
N64. You ever mess with like the RetroTink?
I've heard of the RetroTink. I decided that the RetroTink, for what it does, I decided that I wanted to just go ahead and either do straight up mod chips,
Mm,
you know, in the console because it's lagless, right?
yeah, yeah.
And um, yeah,
Have you ever thought about streaming some of those old retro games?
I on occasion actually do.
What is your
Um,
stream setup to get them? Like, are you emulating them on the PC? Or are you hooking them up?
Most of the time, I'm actually using some form of hardware.
Mm.
So I also have some FPGA hardware for some consoles from Analog.
Okay, yeah,
Uh,
analog's cool. Do you have
yeah,
the? You ever play with the Pocket?
I have a Pocket. I can't find my memory card,
Oh no.
but it's right here in the case.
Hey, oh man, look at that case, the black one.
uh,
I got the Indigo
yeah, yeah,
one a
yeah.
couple months ago.
Yeah, there was only black and white when I ordered, but they now have colors, so
Yeah,
it's exciting.
I was like, it's
Yeah.
too much. Now there's too many colors. I was like, oh man, I got to get this one. I got to get this one. You know what, Zoycite, we have more in common than I realized. Just gonna we do like
Yeah,
a
I
whole
mean,
other interview on this.
yeah, I mean, you can chat me up anytime. I keep my Discord open, and as long as like the person's not a complete just, I guess, mouth breather troll level, kind of thing.
Right.
I, I talk to almost everybody,
Mm.
so I help people with questions when they ask. I get asked a lot of questions in EverQuest because I am streaming some of the higher end raid content, and maybe my UI is not the best, okay, but I do get asked about it a lot.
Yeah.
And or how do you get your Gina to do this, or how do you get all these things set up that way? And so,
Some people are real wizards with like log parser, Gina, and Nag. Like you're like
yeah,
you watch them play, and you're like you and I are playing different video games. You know,
yeah,
people really get into it.
yeah.
So, all right, you were on the H1Z1 team. That starts going south. Where do we go from there?
So that was going south. Okay, so the minute that I showed up at on the H1Z1 team, okay, they had a thing at Daybreak where they put like all the pictures by, and on like the studio monitors or something for all the new hires of the month or week or whatever. And well, Prathan, or he's also known as Jonathan Carricker. I'm sure a lot of people know him.
Yep.
Um, he sees that picture and he says, "Hey, didn't I interview you, a few years ago or something like that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, what are you doing here?" And so, um, I guess something made its way back up to Jay Chan or Jennifer Chan, and she came by and she's like, "I'm not sure I remember you." But then she like saw some stuff on my desk. I had a bunch of narwhals on my desk, and she's like, "Oh, you're the narwhal person. I remember you."
Nice.
And she said the same thing. She's like, "Why did you, uh, come here and not to my team?" And I was like, "Well, you weren't hiring at the time, and I was just trying to get a job at the time."
How did you become the narwhal person just in the interview process? Did you show up with your hat?
Okay, no, I didn't have the hat yet. Okay, the hat came later. So I I started a website when I was in Crimson Tempest around the Underfoot era, so pretty much when I had joined. And I started a website called Zoe Wiki. So I had this problem in EverQuest. I love to run groups. I love to go after the achievements that they had just added. You know, I always had the problem of disseminating the information of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it to the group. So there was Rasper's repository at the time and Alakazam's, and I thought neither of those were great, but Rasper had a really good idea of, shortening the information to just the task driven nature that the game is becoming. So I kind of went with that, and I knew a lot about doing wikis because I think you know that, but maybe the audience doesn't know. But Danzor and I were doing a lot of that, just on various like Flash games that we were playing, putting them on Wikia and things like that. So we picked up.
I've never heard of that person, Dancer, before.
I think he's in your guild or something. I don't
I
know.
don't know. I definitely didn't find out about your presence in the
Oh,
game through Dancer at all.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he talks to me a lot about Faceless and stuff like that.
Oh
And,
God,
yeah.
Dancer is awesome. I love that guy.
Except you know him.
Yeah.
How do you know him? No.
Through the grapevine.
No. Oh, yeah. Through the grapevine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I started that wiki, and so as a bard, you come up with all kinds of ways. If you're maining a bard back then, you're trying to get people interested in the game. You're trying to get them interested in groups. You're trolling in guild chat. You're coming up with all kinds of stupid shit. Okay. And the thing that I had come up with at that time was narwhals, and I began to be obsessed with narwhals. So I put a narwhal on the site, you know, and then everyone just, started narwhal memeing the heck out of me all the time in game. So I was like, okay, that's cool. And the site kind of took off a little bit later for another game that got put on the wiki.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Well,
narwhals just yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And now you're like ride or die with the narwhals all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to do this Twitch thing, I guess I'll put some narwhal pictures on there. And then for one of my birthdays, a friend asked, well, what do you want for your birthday? And I really didn't want anything. Okay. So I said a narwhal hat. Okay. Well, narwhal hat showed up at the door. And so they didn't think I was going to wear it or was serious, but I went like hardcore on the narwhal hat and just started wearing it to work. I was working at High Res at the time, and had like the High Res narwhal tag and all this other stuff and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? Bark, right? High res bark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
That little insider. The viewers won't get that, but don't worry.
It's actually Barky is what.
Barky. Okay, I wasn't sure if the E was silent or not. Okay, well, that's cool.
That's a thing from actually Timegate Studios.
Man, so you've worked all over the place in the industry. That's cool. That's really cool. So when you finally went over to the team with Jay Chan,
yeah,
well, how does that work? Like, wasn't Holly still the producer, or was she gone already?
Yeah. So Jay Chan was, I guess, lead technical director or something like that. Studio technical director. I don't know exactly what the title was, but basically in charge of the EverQuest franchise under Holly, right? The devs essentially, right? So she comes over and she's like, well, I know I can't take you out of this important role or something like that, but do you want to have lunch with us and meet the team some more and let them get to know you? And I was like, well, hell yes, I love EverQuest. I'm not playing right now, but I'd love to talk to the devs. I've played for so long. Who wouldn't? Right?
That sounds like when you're like, hey, I know you're in this guild already, but why don't you come just like guest for us in one raid and see how we do it, and see if you like the feel. Yeah, like I don't want to take you from this role, but like come over and see this.
Yeah. So basically almost every day or every other day, I was meeting and greeting and having lunch with the devs. We were talking. We were playing magic drafts and stuff like that after work or during lunch. Things like it, just typical game studio stuff.
And eventually, did you work? Um, you worked on that team, right?
So yeah, so when the H1Z1 project was, so it was down to maybe 8 people. Okay,
Wow.
all right, and
From a peak of like how many?
ooh, it was a lot. It,
Like
geez,
triple digits?
yeah, it was in the triple digits, and it
Wow.
was well over 200.
Wow.
Yeah, so there was a lot of people at the peak. It was a fun roller coaster ride, seeing the peak and everything like that, and the rise and fall, and
It's got to be really valuable to like see the whole loop, right, of a thing like that.
yeah. When I got hired, they were just starting the absolute crazy, like that's when they realized, oh, we got to hire people.
So what did you do for Daybreak? And they weren't dark. You were already gone when they became Darkpaw, right?
No, I was there through the DarkPaw transition.
Okay.
So I got hired as a like a senior build engineer for H1Z1.
Hmm.
Um, I was supporting a complicated branched gameplay development workflow and getting that working better than they had it, and also getting PlayStation 4. I have to get my PlayStation numbers right because there's been like 5 of them. I don't know that I've worked on. I don't know.
But when like what did you do when you were working on Everquest?
Oh, okay. So I got moved over as a senior programmer for doing client and server, some data modifications. There's also things that people don't think about, like reporting scripts that are going to go and they're going to look at, say, all the sales figures of uh, Potion of Adventure 2 or something like that.
Okay, yeah, yeah, like to capture valuable analytics, basically.
Right, right. So there's things like that that are done too. Um, there, there's client server. Um, you know, when you zone, what happens? UI, all that stuff.
So you were doing a lot of that not glorious stuff, like the things the players don't see, but makes the game run.
Oh, they definitely could see something that I've worked on, but I wasn't the only person that worked on this. The entire team at the time was working on this.
Hmm.
Um, I I want to say there wasn't a single designer, dev, artist, producer, whatever, that wasn't working on, in some capacity, the overseer system. So,
Yeah.
making some of the XML stuff for the UI is one part. Well, there's backend code for both the client and the server and the database, and all these components.
Hmm. Okay. How many years? Like what was the time frame that you were there, like year to year?
I think I was at Daybreak about 3 years in total.
Starting in like oh wait,
And sometime in 2017, I
okay. And
think.
that counts your time in H1Z1 though?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So I worked on EverQuest about a year and a quarter officially.
Hmm.
Um, when we were having the lunches and stuff, I mean, I was providing feedback on, at some point, on current content and being like, okay, these are the issues with XYZ achievement, and this is either how it can be cheesed or it's not working, and this is what we're doing, and we think it should be working and have made reasonable efforts to do these achievements.
Were there a lot of people on the team at that time that had your wealth of knowledge as a hardcore player? Or were you like
There
above most of what they had?
there are a couple other players or devs that do have that kind of knowledge and experience in game as players and or are current players. Like, and they play like TLPs. Some of them play in big raid guilds. Some just play casually. It's like, okay, me and my four friends, you know what we like to do? We like to, you know, play characters, and we're all like level 90, and we go do level 90 stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's good. I think casual gameplay and the casual player is kind of like the secret lifeblood of EQ. Maybe not secret, but I think a lot of hardcore players overlook how important casuals are. At least
Mhm.
on TLP servers where I have mostly played, it's like super critical to maintain your casual player base, your community as much as you can, because once they're gone, it just feels like the server is empty, and people start like fading away with all that. So it's good and sort of surprising. You know what I mean? I think there was a long standing perception that a lot of the people who have worked on EQ in the last, like, I don't know, 15 years or 10 years haven't been super in touch with like the raid content. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, so it's good to hear that. Now, you at the time that you worked there, when did you start picking EQ up again? Because you said you took that break.
Okay, so just before the TBL expansion came out, uh, Jonathan or Prathan came to me in person and was like, "Hey, I really would value your feedback, because you know a lot about the game on our latest expansion, and would you please play this game again?" I was like, "I don't know," and I'm like, I I've got so much I'm working on here, but it was kind of, he timed it just at the right time, okay? Because it was just about to be winter break, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to have plenty of time at my parents' house, to play over the break.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll try it a little bit and stuff. And I was still in Crimson Tempest then, and I logged in, and people were like, "Oh my god!" And immediately, the first thing out of Morlach's mouth, which is one of their necromancers, was like, because I logged in and it did like achievements,
Where
right,
you
or
get the
some.
yeah the huge AA achievement spam.
Yeah, I got a
Yeah.
bunch of achievements. The first thing said in like guild chat was like narwhals, narwhals swimming in the ocean, and I was just like, "Oh fuck," you know,
Yeah.
and yeah. So yeah, I remember that quite well. And then I started playing it, and I was like, "Hey, this is actually a lot better and actually challenging, content." Um, so I was very attracted to that and wanted to play a very challenging game.
How do you feel about your memories of that era versus like the last couple raids that we've had in retail EQ?
So um, the current raids, say, since after TBL, have been a lot easier and toned down,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think it's good for the game, for most players, ostensibly, to a point. Okay, if it's too easy and there is absolutely no challenge, like you can roll in there with like three groups and down a 54-person raid, maybe there's a line there that has been crossed. Okay. um
Do you feel like we're approaching that line recently?
i I
I'm
think
sure you
we're
don't want to do any criticism, right? Is that
well, I mean, you know I think we're a little over the line. I think we've overbalanced
hmm
for the casual audience to the game. Um, but EverQuest doesn't either have the easy capability to have a hard mode and
hmm
a easy mode or casual mode or normal mode.
Well, so
Um,
why is that? Because like in UF and SOD, they experimented with that, right?
so Underfoot, I don't believe had.
It had like additional achievements that produce
Oh, the
more chests.
achievements.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what happened is the achievements were kind of the evolution of the hard mode, as it were.
Yeah.
But World of Warcraft was basically doing similar achievements, but when you did certain things in the World of Warcraft raids, okay, it actually changed the encounter entirely. To
Yeah.
like, it was like, oh, you did what, you chopped off the wing or whatever. Okay, now I'm enraged and my sword got fire and all this other crazy stuff, right?
Right.
Um, you know, even the underfoot system didn't quite have that. And the thing is the hard mode had to be separately in SOD, had to be separately like scripted and all that stuff. So it's like, yes, there is a hard mode, but those are like, additional scripts that were made, and it's not that much different than the normal mode.
Gotcha. And is it just like a time and manpower thing that prevents?
Yes.
Yeah, that unfortunate. Recently, I'm sure you're hip to it. Like basically, like Holly went over to Blizzard, and suddenly they're doing like TLP servers, sort of, right? But they're doing it
Yeah.
like in a way that is like what we would dream of having as a TLP player base, especially now with Season of Discovery and all that stuff, and like the hardcore modes built in, and it sucks to see a lot of the things that you want in EQ another company is able to do. And that EQ would do it if they had the resources. They just don't have it. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, to properly do like a hard mode, you don't just need design resources, but like to do something like I mentioned World of Warcraft. I don't even know if that's a real raid that happens in World of Warcraft, but I've seen a few videos and things, but I don't know what the names of the raids are in WoW, but it'll be like titled heroic mythic blah 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 raid, and then they'll say, okay, now we're going to do this and activate this, and um it does look a lot different, the things that they're able to do with the art and stuff like that,
Do
like.
you, do you think we'll ever see that sort of thing, or is that opportunity kind of just passed?
So the opportunity for that thing for EverQuest maybe is past, but that said, EverQuest 2 does offer a lot of those, more visually appealing raids that have all these conditional things that you can do to steer the raid down different paths of
Right.
difficulty and such.
But on the downside, then you would be playing EverQuest too.
That is true.
Yeah. So it's like, pros and
But
cons.
like, yeah,
I could play the game I love or the game I hate. Yeah. No,
yeah.
but I get what you're saying. So how long did you stay in Crimson Tempest? Because eventually you transitioned to your current guild, right? Was there a guild in between that, or?
That's when I joined TR. So, uh, when TBL was going on, okay, they didn't have very many bards. They maybe had like three, which is kind of low for high end competitive guilds.
Mhm.
And a few of the officers didn't like me for whatever reason. They didn't like that I was maybe more popular than them or whatever with certain people, or I made too many lewd jokes or what have you. Um, so they like didn't want me to raid. So I was like, well, okay, screw this. And so I was like, I'm just gonna go enjoy the game casually. So I was in Cestus previous to uh, Crimson Tempest like 10 years ago, and that's where I was previously. So I server transferred just back over to Luckland, not going to a guild or anything. I was like, I'm just going to work on my quests and, casually and stuff, and, solo, because that was fun. I was working on EOK stuff solo as a bard or with a merc. I mean, come on. Um, I was having a good time doing that. Um, and someone I guess from TR picked up because I was like, always doing stuff all the time. They're like, oh, hey, do you want to come join this thing? Like, I had transferred over to Luckland, and I guess I had a previous character named Zoycite on the server. I was like, ah, screw it. I don't want anyone to really know I'm there, but if I meet a few people, whatever. Um, so I named my character Narwhal at the time. And then I could that like I renamed my thing, and they're just like, this bard's way too freaking crazy. Like I only know one bard that's ever been this crazy, and so I would like just get point blank asked, "Are you Zoycite?" And I'd say, "Yeah,"
Yeah.
but please be quiet. I just want to enjoy the game in peace,
Well, people
and
are really good at keeping secrets and not spilling that kind
yeah,
of stuff.
so it got bubbled up somewhere to some former Cestus Die people that have been in TR, and they're like, "Oh, you should come apply or just talk to our recruitment officer." And I was like, "Well, I'm starting to exhaust kind of the stuff that I'm working on." Okay, I did like the TBL expansion. I guess I'll join. Okay. Meanwhile, like when I left Crimson Tempest, um it was a big deal because I had a lot of loyal friends that were over there, or like they're like, or good players, and they're like, why aren't you letting this bard play, right?
Right.
Like they're our highest parsing bard. They're not even in raid gear. What are you doing? You know,
People
and
people always see through those ego decisions that leadership makes. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I left, and uh, the guild had a falling out at that point. So I don't know if I was the entire cause. Uh, de- Probably not. Just
Usually those things are brewing, right? Like you getting
yeah,
pushed out was like a symptom of whatever the bigger
right.
problem was.
Yeah. Why would if you've had a member that's been mostly active for 7 or so years, returns to the game, how bad is it if they're raiding with you, if they're a competent raider?
Right.
Like you can do much worse. Like you know, you could get people that are actually toxic and trying to actively wipe the raid, don't listen to instructions, you know, and they're doing that constantly, or
Right.
they're stalking people, or
Yeah.
terrible things that can happen in social situations,
And I
right?
mean, like, what are they replacing you with? Are they replacing you with a box with an empty raid slot? You know what I mean? Is
An
there really
empty raid
something?
slot.
Yeah, like I get into this all the time with people who are like, "Oh, that monk." Again, in your case, you're a high performer, but this comes up all the time. Like, why is this guy in our guild? He does like 80% of the damage of the rest of the monks, and I'm like, well, it's because that's like 2 million more damage per second more than an empty raid slot does. You know what I mean? So that's why this
Yeah,
shit comes up all the
exactly.
time.
Yeah, exactly. Um, you know, so join TR. I intended to stay in TR for a while. I was still on H1Z1 at the time when I joined TR. They didn't know I worked at Daybreak, but I apped with them, when they were doing TBL. I had kind of already learned a lot of the raids from Crimson Tempest. Um, because I would get slotted in before, I left as kind of like, oh, this is returning members. They can't say no if there's like a spot or something, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't get like loot priority or anything. So I was like almost fully tier 3 flagged when I joined TR.
Now, at the time,
For
was Crimson Tempest higher on the totem pole than TR was?
probably I couldn't tell you. I think they were around 6 to 8, somewhere in there,
So
and I
you're
don't
like
know.
you're coming to TR though. You're like bringing the strats.
Yeah, I did a little bit. I was like, so we went into GMM, and we were struggling even a little bit with the first raid. And I said, what if you do this with the tanks and the positioning? And it's just like a light bulb went off. That became from an iffy encounter to like, oh my god, we got this on tank and spank mode.
And then how many expansions were you with TR for?
Not even a quarter of an expansion.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like
Is that because TR sucks?
no. So what had happened, like I said, is all this stuff was going on in Crimson Tempest. People were leaving, and my friends are like, "What the fuck are you doing over in TR? I know that's your character," because they saw my Discord contact and stuff.
Right.
And And I was like, well, I'm just chilling. And they're like, you're wasting your time. You should come over to this SR guild. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. And one of the reasons I didn't want to do that is because um yeah, it should go unsaid, but I was at Daybreak. I knew some things. I didn't want to join the guild, okay? Because of the things that I knew. And so I was like, yeah, I don't want to join uh, ROI or SR in particular,
At
okay?
that time, was SR one of the top guilds already?
I don't know. I honestly had no clue what the status was. I just knew some things internally
Right.
uh, uh, that I did not want to join their guild because I felt it was unfair competition.
Right. But you, so
Right.
I know what you're saying, and all my viewers will know what you're saying, right? Because I've talked about it
Yes.
before, right? Um,
Yes.
I have a few questions, and if you can't answer them, I understand.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm trying to be very careful to not say the things that you do know.
Right. Is there a rule against it?
No.
Okay, so like if you wanted to, you could join the top guild. J Chan could go join like ROI, and it wouldn't be a problem, right?
Correct.
Right. Do you think that there should be a rule against it, or do you not think that?
Um, I personally kind of had a
Obviously,
moral
you had
issue.
like some ethical consideration of it,
I,
right?
I had some ethical consideration because I was like, okay, I do want to raid, but and I want to raid current content. I don't want to raid 3 expansions ago.
Hmm.
All the time. Um, so I molded over for about a week. And in that week period of time, okay, is also when I got the offer to officially join the EQ team over from H1Z1.
Which makes it even a little bit hairier, right?
It made it even more difficult to make that choice. So I pulled Adisha into a voice chat and I said, like, look, here's the situation. You know, I work at Daybreak. I have some friends that are telling me, hey, from Crimson Tempest that are saying, hey, would you come play with us over here? I feel really bad about it. I love your guild. You are an awesome person, all these things, but I'm torn and conflicted. Here's what's about to happen. I know you're in the community council. I know you're this and all that. And she's like, well, I suspected you were working for Daybreak already, because you just seem to have way too much knowledge about the game and things like that.
Hmm.
And so, and she's like, I'm surprised you aren't already a dev, and stuff like that. So I said, this is what's happening. Um, and what do you want me to do here? Because I can go either way. And she's like, it sounds like you've already made your decision because you're already going to go join the dev team, right? And I was just like, okay, uh, you know, I'll let you know in a couple days, what I decide. And so I talked with, I guess, now officially the SR recruiter. They convinced me to get over there ASAP. After talking with my friends saying, you need to recruit this person. And so I decided that maybe I just should go back to doing what I know how to do is, play the bard and join SR and be with people I know a little bit better or longer.
Hmm.
Um,
Now, but up to that point, you weren't like this is sort of happening the same time you said like as you were becoming an EQ dev. So when you were with CT and TR, like even though you worked there, it's not like you could bring to bear special knowledge about the game because it wasn't the game you worked on, right?
right, but
Yeah.
eating lunch with the guys every day, if a mission had a bug or an exploit or something, you know, I'm probably seeing that exploit being in a more of a uber high end guild. so that we can get through the content as fast as possible,
Yeah.
or things like that.
There's definitely some subtle advantages, no doubt. Like we
Sure.
had a developer for another Daybreak game in our guild on a server,
Mm-hmm.
and it gave us a lot more access to like Holly when we were having issues pre Agent of Change. There was no instancing on TLPs, you know what I
Sure.
mean? And
Sure.
like even though that person didn't directly work on the EQ team, it gave us a lot more. I would say it gave us advantage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anytime I emailed Holly, especially internally, she always answered.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I emailed her as some random idiot on the internet, she answered. It was amazing. It was crazy. She shouldn't do that. She probably shouldn't do that because there's crazy people like me out there. But yeah, Holly was great. I thought she was awesome. I mean, I think J Chan's awesome too. For the record, like J Chan has like I don't want to I don't want to segue too far from this topic, but I want to rant about how much I like what J Chan has done. Like the technical, like the back end of EQ seems so much better. Like when there's a new expansion launch or a server launch, it is so much smoother than it used to be as a player. And I attribute that, I hope correctly, to J Chan and her agenda of kind of like bringing EverQuest into like the 2020s on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. Been very good, management under Jay Chan for the game and keeping the game running. Um, a lot of games launch and have all kinds of issues, and they're not even at a fraction of what the scale of EQ is. And you'll hear a lot of naysayers in EQ saying EQ's dead. It is definitely not. It is a
No.
very active and thriving game. Um, I was privy to the numbers, the exact numbers, the live counts, all that type of stuff. I can say confidently that EQ is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. No, I mean like there were some leaks not too long ago of like the server numbers, how much Daybreak cash is spent on each server, like on a day by
Hmm.
day. You probably know the screens I'm talking about, like at least not the actual leaked ones, but the view. And it just shows every server how many unique accounts have logged in, how many accounts have logged in, and how much Daybreak cash was spent on each server. And people who saw it were like, "Wow, that's a lot more than we thought." You know what I mean? Like EQ, there are a ton of shit MMOs that do not have the numbers that EQ has.
Oh yeah, but I'm just saying there are multiplayer games that have not even the population of, say, one EverQuest live server, and they struggle with issues that are just, you know, basic,
Right. Yeah.
that EverQuest just doesn't have.
Yeah.
And whether it's the infrastructure tech stack that EverQuest has developed and Daybreak has developed over the years, it doesn't matter. It's just
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. Like as a player, where it was like 7 years ago, maybe time is going by so fast. I found out that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock 2 years ago, and I was like, dude, I thought if you asked me, I would have said that was 6 months ago. So it's hard
yeah.
to put my finger on it. But like Ragefire, when Ragefire launched for like a whole day, they basically just had to say, sorry, we're going to start over. You know what I mean? Like the server
Mhm.
just fucking was not functional at all for a period of time. And now like servers that are far more popular launched and it's just like buttery smooth. People complain about the queue, but hey, the queue is part of that process of keeping it smooth. Anyway, I can take my EverQuest hat off now because I said a good thing about the company, which I'm not supposed to do.
You're not supposed to do.
No, I'm the dev slayer. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Um, no, but so you went over to SR and stuff, and I
Mhm.
honestly I think that I don't know. I for some reason I'm thinking that at that time they weren't like super like top two at the time, but
I think there was somewhere top 5 maybe when I
yeah,
came over. Top
per
6 maybe.
personally I think devs being in a guild that is like top like 5 to 10 in that range I think is totally kosher. I think that as a company you should have people who are in the upper echelon but are not like competing for like the literal top spot. I think
Sure.
it gets real awkward when you're like the top guild in EverQuest has 3 devs in it.
Yeah, but like if you're an artist, say and I'm not saying there's an artist or a designer or a coder in any top guild by any means. Um, but like, let's say you're an artist, you don't have, as you have a lot of information, but you don't maybe necessarily have the same technical knowledge that, say, let's say Ingress, for instance, was in, or Absol was in, ROI or SR or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Um, they actually made the raids. So um, even though I was a coder, right? Um, I wasn't actually working on any raid content. Now, if I had the time, I guess I could have gone in and spawned the raid for myself or whatever, or looked at the scripts, but there was so much to do, for the job. It's like, man, when we were beta rating, and stuff, I wanted to be there just to show that I was there. So like I would JT buff the bard and send him into the raid instance. And if you don't know what the JT buff is, or it's like, a million hit points and regen and stuff. Basically makes you almost unkillable. So I would just do that, and then I was still working on the side and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And just trying to make sure, oh, the raid wiped. Okay, I need to like kill the bard, and I'd stay hidden in the raid, but I would, stuff like that.
Oh, so you're just like there, invisible, watching.
hmm
Yeah, yeah. So
Well,
you could see.
it was the own guild, right?
Right.
Um, that I was in. Um, and sometimes I would go to like some of the guilds I had been in previously on like a random dev tune and be like, hey, do y'all want buffs? Hey, do you want reses? And like be like, oh, y'all are having problems here. Let me give you all 100% reses so y'all can get to business later. I know I did that for several guilds. Some I didn't even know. Yeah.
Would so you said that Prathen said that he would like your basically your feedback, your insight on the new stuff he was working on. Was Prathen active as a player? And I don't need to know anything about where he played, but I'm just
Um.
wondering if he was he like actually doing raids
Uh.
personally?
I don't believe he was actually doing any raids to my knowledge. He certainly didn't disclose it to me. So,
I had the privilege to have a bunch of interactions with him over the years.
mhm,
He probably doesn't like remember me, but like just because our guild was always causing trouble, and he was always fun and seemed super knowledgeable and was good at explaining things. So I always liked
mhm.
him a lot. I feel like we as a player base lost a lot when he went on to greener pastures.
Yeah. We both left about the same time, which was during the pandemic.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know what reasons he specifically left. Maybe it was just like, hey, it's a tumultuous time. I've been doing this for 8, 9 years, however long it had been. I think it's time to move on. I'm not sure of his specific reasonings. Maybe it's something he'll disclose to you one day. I'm sure I'll ask him if I catch up with him again.
And didn't he go like he left like right after Holly, like a month or two after Holly, right?
Right, that was about when we both left. I think Holly left uh, early March of 2020, I think.
Yeah. Now I don't think that this is what happened, but the rumor mill back then amongst people who don't know anything was that like, oh, Holly went and then he went to the same company. She must have like reached back and been like, hey, come work on this thing with me. You know what I mean?
Several EverQuest devs have had a history of going and working on Blizzard for a very long time.
Yeah. Have you ever worked with Blizzard?
I've been in contact with the recruitment off and on. You know, uh, I've not been to any in-person interviews for Blizzard. Their phone interviews are pretty tough, um, and phone interviews are really hard. Even if you've got the knowledge and experience and everything they're looking for, phone interviews sometimes they'll throw something out there in so left field, and you'll just be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't heard it called that. kind of stuff, and then they shut down the phone interview really fast.
Hmm.
So phone interviews are very challenging.
Yeah. Okay. So what was the culture of the company like when you were working with EverQuest specifically? You told me a funny story in Twitch chat about like how Holly would open every meeting.
Oh yeah. So particularly when the team was large, like larger company meetings, Holly had a group, like, they're going through the different projects at the studio, like H1Z1 and, this and that. All the executive producers or uh, team leads or whatever would do their thing. And so Holly would come up there and she would be like, "Sup, fuckers?" Like that's like every time, like something to do with always calling us fuckers and stuff like that, to the whole company. And like you would also have uh uh what's his name, jeez, the CEO of Daybreak. Okay, and next up is Holly. Please excuse her language, like right before she
Nice.
would get on. This doesn't represent the whole of the company and all this stuff.
That is amazing. That
Yeah,
makes me
yeah,
like Holly so much. I already liked Holly a
yeah,
lot. It makes me like
yeah,
her even more.
yeah. So yeah, she's a lot of fun. Yeah, so
I felt like it was kind of her agenda that made TLPs what they are now, which is like basically it's a seasonal TLP. Like every year we get a fresh batch.
perhaps. um I don't know exactly.
How much interaction did you get to have with her, like in person?
Uh, a decent bit. Definitely. So when I was joining the EverQuest team and leaving the H1Z1 team, okay, it's always a complicated story, especially when a game isn't doing well, like H1Z1 was at the time. So I got told like 3 months prior, "Hey, we're eliminating all positions on the team. Go get another job." I got told that by my manager at Daybreak. Okay,
I
and
imagine like when someone says that, you just hear the Mario death noise, like the.
uh, and they're like, and my manager said, "Go talk to Jay Chan right now, and if she's not in a meeting, uh, tell her what I just told you and join her team, because she was interested in having you on her team, and you talk with the team all the time. You should go join them. They seem to like you." So uh, went and did that, and I was like, "Hey, look, here's what I just got told," and I think the person that I was replacing had just put in a 2 week notice or something. It was like things lined up, okay,
Mm,
and so but it's going to take some time for the company wheels to turn to, like, you know I'm there's only like 7 or 8 people on the H1Z1 team in total, okay. um we have to, so for me to go over to EverQuest, we have to get all the work that I'm working on, you know automated or transitioned to somebody else, and all those kinds of things, and then I can go do the other role. um but I wasn't putting a lot of faith in necessarily getting the role,
hmm.
because you know it was a different job title and some other things like that, and I was like, okay, maybe this can happen, maybe it can't. you know um and I had already been seeking out other job opportunities, because even before that announcement came, it's coming. Okay, there are 7 people on the game. The daily player count is 20.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
there's no money coming in.
The
Okay, you're all
prophecy is foretold. Yeah.
you can see the writing on the wall.
Right.
So I had, all within that same time period. uh it's so foggy exactly what it was, but I also had a job offer to go work at Bethesda, um and like a written offer, not just, "Oh, this recruiter says you can make all this money, blah blah blah. And the thing that job had going for it is I wanted to go back to Austin, Texas,
Mm.
um, and work out of there because California was so expensive. It was just like astronomical. It was very difficult to, you know, survive in California.
I went
You
out for
know,
breakfast in San Francisco a couple months ago, and it was like $70 for some eggs and a drink. And I'm like, what is happening here? You know what I mean? How can
yeah,
you live this way?
yeah. So I mean, when I was there, it was like if you want to get hamburger meat or something at the grocery store, it was like 13.99 a pound, and I'm just like, what is this?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Wow.
um, yeah. So anyway, I basically then went to Holly and was like, "Hey, Holly, you know, has Jen discussed this with you? Um, and here's what the situation is. Okay, I've got a job offer. Here it is. Are y'all serious or not? Because if not, I'm gonna 86 the f out of here. You know, um, because the project's dying, and I know there's not a lot of prospects right now. Well, there was supposed like we had scheduled up a bunch of interviews, but the interviews amounted to me taking another written programming test and stuff like that, just covering some basic algorithms, data structures, stuff like that. I say basic, but it's kind of complicated. Um, and so we had gotten about that far. I was supposed to have some maybe whiteboard interviews with a couple of programmers, but it kind of got circumvented because one I had already had previously. So let's see, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe I had all of that when it was SOE. Okay. And had received a written offer to work on EverQuest at the time.
So you're
So
kind of already like a known quantity.
right,
Yeah.
right. So the question is, what's what, and let's do all that. So went went to Holly, and I'm like, hey, this is what's happening. I'm probably going to take this job offer. They're being very persuasive, offering, every day they're offering more money to get me to move out of San Diego. Okay, it basically is what's going on. Okay, um, and so because at Bethesda, I had previously worked with somebody on the team, and the team lead's like, "Oh yeah, we need her," and so um, we went out to the claim jumper and kind of just had like this group meet and greet. They're like, "Yeah, you all know Ashley. Does anyone have any objections to have her, join the team or whatever as a programmer?" And then there were maybe like a couple of questions that were just kind of softball questions, and we had claim jumper, and then I had a written after we had a early or late lunch or something.
Was it what is J Chan like? Is she intimidating or is she really nice and accommodating?
I think she's relatively nice. Um, and she tries to understand and work with people a lot. So she has very high expectations too, I think, of a lot of people. So people also respect Jay Chan at work a lot, because she's very knowledgeable.
Hmm.
She knows she can practically tell you the line number of any function in EverQuest. Just about it's insane. Like she'll be like, "Oh, you need to go look in this file on this line number," and the EverQuest project, I don't know, is tens of thousands of files that are each thousands of lines each. You know that's the breadth of her knowledge. That may not be exactly where it's at, but it's pretty impressive.
It's always scary when your boss has that kind of like ultra in-depth granular knowledge about your job. You know what I mean? You don't want your boss to have to tell you what you ought to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Well, that's cool. Do you know if Jay Chen has a background as an EverQuest player?
I know that she currently plays EverQuest
Ooh.
and EverQuest 2,
Whoa.
but
What guild is
I,
she?
I don't know that. I do know one of the character names, but I'm not at liberty to reveal that.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you'll totally tell me after the podcast.
Not a chance.
I don't. I have never before leaked anything anywhere,
Yeah.
so I'm trustworthy. That is really cool. A lot of good insight there. What is your favorite expansion? Tell me your top 3
Ooh.
and bottom 3 expansions.
I definitely like TBL. That's got to be probably the number one expansion, and I like Underfoot, and I also like Prophecy of Ro a lot. But I like
That's
it
like the
first.
worst expansion ever.
Well, okay, it's really nice if there wasn't DODH like right before it. But and also I got to play it pre-nerf when I was in Triton, and the content was a lot more challenging, and it just got kicked down to nothing. Like Discord Tower, or what, or not Discord Tower, Death Knell.
Yeah.
Stupid towers. There's like 100 of them. there's like a Kinos tower. There's a Tower of Rot. There's a bunch of them. Anyway, the initial like bell toll encounter. So when the gargoyles would spawn, instead of fighting like a watered down version of Zthuli or whatever, it was 4 full hit point, you know, phase 4 Zthulis just going full damage on you. The healing's like so sketchy, just absolutely crazy. The curses are going off like 3 or 4 times as fast, and
That's actually my favorite fight in the whole expansion, I think. That and
yeah,
Daoshin is kind of fun. Or yeah, Daoshin
yeah,
is fun. Sutrin is fun. But like,
yeah.
yeah, nowadays when we do DK1, what is it, Tolling of the Dissonant Bells, we just like stack the whole raid on one and put like a tank in each of the other corners, and we pop intensity, and we actually kill them one by one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also liked the zone, is it Relic, where there's the couple of open world bosses and
Yeah.
things like that.
It's got
Yeah.
Porthio and 3 basically trash dragons, but they look really cool.
Yeah, but it's got one of my favorite dragons. So I like pulled the dragon or whatever on the first day we were going out there, and I was like, all right, get your chips and dips ready or whatever. Incoming Trisket the Cracker or something like that.
Yes. That's the big silver one, right?
Yeah, I think
Japanese
so.
style dragon, like he's like very long.
Yeah, like the Dragons of Noreth guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and what's your
Yeah.
least favorite expansion?
Uh, Least favorite. Ooh, that's tough. You can't say Legacy of Yukisha because there's not really any raids, right? But the cool thing about Legacy of Yukisha that a lot of people forget is you get maps. So that's definitely not there. Not my least favorite. Um, hmm. Ooh. Uh, Probably the Broken Mirror.
Hmm.
I love the art, but the expansion's just too tiny.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the problem with it. Cool Link to the Past mechanic or whatever you want to call it, magic mirror, that type of thing. Um, so probably put Broken Mirror on there. Um, hmm. You know, I
Do you like
don't.
TBS? TBS is another really small one. It's just like Solteris, basically, right? And the quest to get into Solteris.
I like the Buried Sea.
Hmm.
I was gonna say, so Night of Shadows I didn't like. I I the art is okay. There's things that I like, but if you were going to go to the other side of the moon, for the love of God, why weren't the snakes involved? I mean,
Dude, the Shissar are like the coolest part of EverQuest.
I know. So like there was no Shissar lore, there's no Shissar named, there's no, like renegade snake that the Vashir are fighting off or
Yeah.
anything.
The Shissar are
Eh,
way cooler than the Akiva.
yeah.
You probably can't see it, but on my back wall here, can you see like that grayish painting? It's like
Uh
halfway cut off by my
it's
camera.
like a pen or a
Yeah,
painting or something. Yeah.
that is a pencil concept art sketch of the Shissar from Keith Parkinson from the box art
Oh,
of
wow.
Lucklin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it a print or a copy or a
No, 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 no.
one-off?
Like it is graphite. It
Oh,
is one
cool.
of one.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm like surprisingly a huge EverQuest fan. No.
Oh, no, no, we're not EverQuest fans here at all. Like
Yeah.
that's not what we do.
Keith's artwork. I'm so jealous that you got to go there and like see the real brushstroke paintings like every day because his artwork is so phenomenal. I mean, it's just like there are a lot of really great fantasy artists, but I feel like Keith Parkinson's artwork on the boxes of EverQuest is just like head and shoulders above everything else.
Yeah, I would make a point to go visit those almost every day, in the break room. Like, or they were like outside the break room, at the Avenue of Science office or whatever, and you could go the quick way, to get back to your place, but no, I would like, go the long way, stop, look, try to see if I could see something new in the painting that I didn't notice before almost every day.
Yeah.
Or if like, I mean, it's work, so people get in your way and you get mad at people and stuff like that. And so sometimes to cool down, I would be like, okay, I need to step away for a minute before I, scream too much out loud in the office and things like that.
So now that we have that palette cleanser out of the way, how familiar and how willing are you to talk about MacroQuest?
Um, I can talk a little bit about it, but I can't talk, say, about anything in the way that how it does things because I've never really used it before.
Well, I don't care about like methodologies. I care about like the way it impacts the community, in the game,
Yeah.
sort of. I look at that bigger picture. What do
Okay.
you view it as
I can give my thoughts on that.
yeah, so let it rip. Go ahead.
Okay, I think MacroQuest is straight up cheating,
Well, yeah,
and
definitely. No one disagrees with that, right?
it, yeah, like, and you shouldn't cheat it at the game. I mean, you know, I think it's a detriment to the game that it's allowed to exist in any form, right?
Why is it allowed to exist?
There is no confirmation either way whether it's allowed to exist or not. Like, no one has said to anybody whether it's allowed or not.
But why don't I don't know the first thing about like how shit works, okay? But like why don't they do more to try to stop the players who use it more frequently? You know what I mean? Like you get suspended if you use it eventually. We've seen suspension waves go out. I just wonder why they're not more aggressive with it. Why not suspend everyone who's using it? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Can you talk to me about that? What your
Oh,
thoughts are?
okay, so rather than talk about MacroQuest specifically, let's talk about cheating in online games more broadly.
Okay.
So this could apply to League of Legends, it could apply to EverQuest, or, you know, Stardew Valley or something. Okay. Well, let's take a real casual game that a lot of people know about.
Are you itching
Uh,
to get back to Stardew right now?
um, yes and no. I'm playing Princess Peach Showtime
Oh, okay.
right
Okay.
now. I'm kind of in the post game activity for it.
Okay.
Anyway, um, so cheating more broadly. So if you're running an online game service, okay, and purportedly that there's some interaction between people, whether it's a competitive interaction or a social interaction, if you can kind of share resources between each other, in a multiplayer way, um, you know, cheating in those types of environments, probably the developer does not desire you to do those things.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And they may be able to figure out that you're cheating. Okay. Through various means. So let's say, in the best case scenario, that you log into the game with a cheat client or cheat engine or something like that. Okay. Um, and you perform a cheat in the game. Let's say you warp 10 spaces forward or something like that, or you're moving 3 times as fast as any regular player can move, like a speed hack, right? I don't know if people are familiar with different types of hack names, like speed hack, map hack, cracked game, for instance, things like that. um, and let's say the developer can identify those things. Well, if the developer immediately bans you for something, right, then you might be able to, as a cheat user or developer, figure out what that thing is and circumvent the detection,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess I
right?
get the tradecraft part of this, right?
Right.
But there's got to be there's a spectrum there, right? But I feel like EverQuest could definitely tighten the belt a little bit. You know what I mean? From where it is.
Yes.
Um, it, do you have any thoughts on why they don't? I think I just want people to get suspended more often. You know what I mean? Even my friends who cheat, right? I want everyone who cheats to feel the pressure that is coming and soon.
Yeah. I would like that very much as well. Um, the only reason that I know that they don't just auto ban you is exactly why I said, is because they want to collect enough instances of cheating, maybe to build up a case of, like, this may not be EverQuest specific, but I can say on a previous project, okay, we allowed people to connect to the game environment with cheats on. Okay. It wasn't until you tripped the server a certain number of times with those cheats that you would get flagged and maybe eventually auto banned. Okay.
Was that like for false positives and stories of like, oh, it was an accident?
Yeah. So um, you can possibly trip server side cheat detection, you know, with player abilities, right? Or character abilities or things like that. Maybe not in EverQuest. I can't confirm or deny any of those types of things. But um, maybe let's think. Let's use League of Legends. Maybe if you the flash ability. Are you familiar with that? It's
I don't know anything about League of Legends. I logged in one
okay.
time, the name Zaide was taken, I never tried it again.
Okay, it's a short range teleport ability, right?
Like a shadow step.
Yeah, like Shadow Step, okay. But let's say if you're facing just the right angle and you click the button or the boots or whatever you have that allow you to do the ability, and you would go in a wall, but like from the distance, right? But it's just far enough that the detection says, "Oh, you should be outside the wall because you can't run into walls." It pushes you just a little bit too far for what's considered a normal range. In 3D space, it's hard to figure out those tolerances, right? So developers do a pretty good job, but you might trip the cheat detection, is what I'm trying to get at. Because, yeah, you used an in-game ability, but one instance of that is not going to do it. In most cases, it's going to take, I don't know, 30 times in a second, kind of thing. Like when these cheat detections are going off, from my experience, and this isn't necessarily the EverQuest way that it is logged and taken into account. Um, there are thousands and thousands of instances of this occurring or suspicious behavior.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, oh, I loaded up this UI mod or what I'm calling a UI mod that lets me see exactly where every mob is on the map or
Right.
something like that, you know,
Yeah.
or all the collectibles, whatever. You know, people justify it to themselves lots of ways. Oh, I'm just using it for this, you know. Um, Usually that's probably not going to be what gets you, but it always could, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the live environment is like. There's so much content that is available via instance where you can kind of hide in your own space on live too, you know what I mean? But early TLP, you see a lot of like people who are legitimately like boxing 50 characters, and
Mhm.
even you know, True Box solved it a little bit for a little while, but now it's kind of like back to the Wild West where you just see them, you know what I mean, in Classic on a True Box server, and I'm like pretty confident that that dude doesn't have 50 computers in his room. He's spoofing his hardware ID, you know, his MAC address or something, right?
Sure.
Or using a bunch of VMs. And I it just I I understand some of the logic of it, but it's hard to reconcile that logic with the encounter of seeing that, you know what I mean, as a player, or like when you see in a contested environment someone just warp, you know what I mean, and you know there's going to be no consequence, like on Cello. When the
Yep.
Cello 20th anniversary server launched, there was a tremendous number of hacks being used early on, and it was just crazy to see like that there was basically no response to like this really really outlandish amount of cheating. And I know it changed my perspective on it and changed a lot of people to be like, okay, like if if there's just going to be no consequences, then why are we going to play with one hand tied behind our back when we deal with certain people in the future, you know what I mean? And then it like poisons the player base kind of with that
Yep.
mindset.
I agree. That's why I think it should be stricter, right? One of the things I like to focus on when I did have the ability to do so was anti-cheat or going after people that are egregious cheaters. Like you mentioned the people that are, you know, 40, 50, 60 boxing or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got some player aid or tool set or setup that is beyond the scope of, you know, normal gameplay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like that, just getting them in the game on a true box server is one thing, but then playing them, like, come on now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah. Now, is there an element of like process monitoring that happens, or can you not, you probably can't say
I
that?
can't say anything
Yeah.
to that degree.
So I've seen some screenshots, okay, and you can confirm or deny or just, you know, say not touching it. I've seen screenshots where a guild leader was given basically file paths to the MacroQuest folders on users directory, like basically a guild leader who you may or may not know supposedly went to a person in their guild who was an employee and said, "Hey, I'd like to know all the people in my guild who are cheating. Could you do that?" And they said yes, or some variation of yes. And they sent him the file path showing, like, "Hey, this is where these 10 players in your guild are using MacroQuest, and here's the proof. This goes all the way to their MacroQuest directory and like their user folder." You know what I mean? Um, have you heard of that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Is this total bullshit or is it possible?
I can't confirm or deny anything like that.
Okay. Yeah,
I mean
I saw some
that
screenshots, but you know, you can always doctor those kind of things. But
yeah, I mean I haven't seen the screenshots and I don't know that that happened, and I can't confirm or deny what EverQuest's logs and servers can actually see.
right,
I,
okay.
so it is extensive, but to what degree of extensive, I can't tell you.
Do you think there's a chance that we could ever get like a Legends 2.0 kind of server, like a more premium server?
It is a suggestion I made for a TLP.
I think I I represent a small contingent of TLP players, sort of represent them. That might be a strong word, but you know what I mean? There's a lot of people who roll with me on these
Mm-hmm.
things. I would go all in on one of those ultra premium Legends style servers if if there was follow through on, like, delivering the more premium experience. One of those things being, like, a lot more GM involvement in eliminating those sort of negative behaviors.
Yeah, that's something that I also wanted to see, particularly on new launch servers, is having GMs on the server that are answering petitions at least during normal hours. Like, you used to like petition through the game, and you would get like a tell from a GM that says, "Hey, I'm GM so and so, and I'm here to help you. How can I do this?"
Right.
Or
I'm your server GM. I know the personalities on your server, and, like, yeah.
yeah, sure. And they kind of know who's who because they were going around and running around, like everywhere from Crushbone and Befallen to, you know, Sebalus and so on. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, nowadays I have suspected that a lot of the GMs are, like, not EQ players. They're customer service who work, like, the breadth of the games and stuff based on,
Hmm.
like, the petition style. Um, on Agnar, we had a guy who got suspended for warping. He was a bard, and the way he got caught is a guy who was upset that we kicked him out of the guild. He cast Bind Sight on the bard, and he was in South Karana. He would run
Hmm.
all the way over trying to doing the Quillmane cycle. And South Karana is big as shit.
Hmm.
And Bind Sight just starts to not function at those big distances. I don't know. It's just not storing the information, like, live. You know what I mean? Once they're so far away from you. And he showed this video, and he's like, "Look, this guy's warping." And I had to go on. I actually, it was Prathan that I talked to get this ban reversed, the suspension reversed. I was like, "Look, here's a video of me reproducing the same thing. No warps involved. It's just a function of, like, Bind Sight over, like, great distance does this." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like if I petitioned that petition today, I would still get someone suspended for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's crazy. Um, yeah, absolutely crazy stuff.
But weaponizing petitions is becoming a larger part of, like, the toxic-ish, like, TLP competitive meta, where, like, someone could just, like, sit by a zone line and then be like, "Oh, they trained me when they were running out." You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And then the thing is, you don't
Mhm.
submit the petition the day it happens. You sit on the petition until 3 days before the next expansion drops.
Yeah.
So you guarantee that your competition is suspended during the window when it actually matters, you know?
Yeah. There's probably just not enough due diligence in that process, right? Like, you know, but I can tell you that all the people that were responding to EQ petitions while I was working on the project were on the EQ team.
Well, that's cool. That's good to know.
Yeah. So, it wasn't like, okay, Planet Side 2 customer service is responding to, EverQuest petitions and stuff. Now, it might have only been a few people, but they were responding to them as they could,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. Um, so I think that is, like, 98% of the questions I have for you, Zoycite. I have, like,
Sure.
2% more that I think you wouldn't want me to ask in this context, so I'll ask them after
Yeah.
we wrap here. But hey,
Sure.
this has been really great having you
Sure.
on. Is there anything that you want to shout out?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know. If you want to ask me any other questions personally, just come follow me on Twitch or come to when I'm streaming on Sundays. Silent Redemption's raids at Twitch TV/Zoycite. I mean, I I'll answer your question if I can. I'm pretty open. I don't. If I can't answer it, I'll tell you. I mean, you heard here, like there were some questions that I'm not going to answer. I just hope I don't get in trouble with JChan for any of them or get like a nasty email
They're going to be
or
matches that you came
that
on.
that probably but you know I haven't been on the team and for a few years now.
Yeah.
You know, um, you know, maybe in a future date, or if someone asks, I can describe why I left the team and all that stuff,
Yeah.
because it was definitely a hard decision.
Yeah. Why do you think they would be mad that you're on the podcast right now?
May I don't know. Some of the things may, like, some of the topics that have been covered have been, MacroQuest centric or things like that.
But you know what? We talk about those things on the podcast, but we never ever couch them in a positive light. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. SR is probably going to be mad. Oh well.
Yeah. Well,
I hate scoring anyway.
speaking of them being mad, I remembered one more question I wanted to
Okay.
ask you. Okay, this
Okay.
is a spicy one. So on the tier 3 launch for Lorien's Song,
Okay.
yeah, I saw a bunch of people crying in some live server thread about
Okay.
all these things. Listen, I don't care about
Yes.
any of that shit. I think guilds should exploit as much as they can. Not even suggesting that you did exploit, by the way.
Sure.
But the things that the live players were crying about, I literally don't care. What I was wondering, for people who don't know, I mean this genuinely. Pure happenstance, the raids launched like 2 or 4 minutes early for you guys, for your server, Kazakhstan, right?
Sure.
Right. And then you won the expansion by like 2 minutes and change as well, right?
Or whatever the times are. Sure.
Do you think you still would have won if ROI and you started at the exact same second?
It could have been a closer race. I mean, there's certainly a lot of variables that go into it. Um, you know, Already we're at the point in the EQ metagame where, we're trying to figure out which specific hardware the zone instance is running on. So, um, it if you're purporting to be a high level guild and you're not doing that, and your members are complaining about lag, well, you need to figure that out and figure out where your debug log is in game and figure that out. And we'll have 3 or 4 people that are sitting there going through requesting raid instances, trying to get the right instance. When they do, then they get the instance shipped over to like a raid requester type person. And SR and ROI are ostensibly doing these sorts of things. Okay, so that the zone lag, the time to zone is lower when we're trying to measure for time like this. But there's tons of factors at play that aren't just your raider's computer, right? We're dealing with a server. We don't know who and what, and especially on like a very packed, time of raids when every guild is trying to raid all at the same time. Like literally every live guild, you know, is trying to cram 25 times 54 people into raid instances all at the same time.
Right.
Okay. And so maybe we figured out that Zonebox 58 on our normal raid night is really good for our guild. So, or like that's the primo, okay? That's what we're fishing for. Okay. Let's say we get it on the race day or whatever people are calling it. And it turns out on race day every guild got assigned there, right?
Then
And
you just got
then
blown, right?
you just got blown because you've got 600 people on your server, or on the server that your characters are actually playing the game on and sending data back and forth, that's competing for CPU, memory, bandwidth, all those things that, can cause lag. And another guild gets on, maybe Zonebox 43, and we think that Zonebox 43 sucks, and we passed it up on race day,
But then they're the only guild on it.
but they're the only guild on it. And let's say that happens, right? Okay, they have an advantage. If that's SR or ROI or any of the competitive guilds, okay, because this feud is really that you mentioned is really between SR and ROI and Mashin Shin and gosh, there's so many guilds. Now I feel bad because I'm not going to mention like a particular guild, but okay. Anyway, so the guilds that are trying to get on these low lag instances to have the best performance possible, right? And that's just one of the variables, right? The other variable that you mentioned from the get go was what people are pissing and moaning about, which is the time discrepancy, right? Between, oh, our instance for this tier launch happened to happen, after the fact
Yeah.
or before everybody else's, like 2 minutes before.
Which, by the way,
Okay.
that's the kind of situation where it starts to look really bad. And like I said, I genuinely think that this was like a random thing,
Yes.
genuinely. But that's where it starts to look really bad to have like three current or former devs in your guild, right? Because people are going to believe what they're going to believe no matter what.
Right. You can't convince anybody no matter what. But if you look at previous tier launches for the past several expansions, including Lorien's Song, okay, ROI got their instance on several tiers before SR did, sometimes by 3 minutes, one time by 8 minutes. And I think on that 8 minute case was the COV expansion, the second Velius remake expansion, I
Right.
think.
Yeah.
And in tier 2, we blew them out of the water by 11 minutes or something crazy.
Hmm.
So it's not that SR didn't have previous tier wins for several years running leading up to it.
Right.
It just so happens that all the RNG and all the prep work and everything just happened to align just that much better. And not once did SR go, well, you got your instance 3 minutes before us, 5 minutes before us, or whatever.
Mm.
Okay. So, I mean, call it what you will. Did we have potentially a small RNG or advantage? Maybe, but there's too many other variables that come after that point that can affect what happens. Like maybe your guild that you're in, or whatever guild you're in, has come up with a breakout strategy, which is what happened in COV and how we were able to not only get the instance well after ROI, but pull ahead of them in the tier 2 raids, like massively. So, take it for what you will.
Yeah.
And
I
and
think
I
that's a
think,
good explanation of it.
yeah, because everybody's on equal playing fields. It's not like, there was a GM that came in, said, okay, we're going to give you the DZ at 1 o'clock, 2
Wait,
hours before everybody
you're
else.
telling me that Niente did not spawn that early for you guys?
I don't know anything about Niente other than I used to work with Niente.
Yeah. No, obviously I'm trolling there. I believe that it is RNG. I think Miko posted like a little explanation of how it worked, like the day that the expansion tiers dropped, and personally, I was satisfied with his explanation. I mean, I think it sucks that the metagame is so tight that like these certain like kind of dumb factors influence like wins and losses. You know what I mean? It'd be cooler if like the discrepancy between first and second place was more like an hour at least.
Sure.
Right.
So I have said this for a number of years about how we determine winners in EverQuest, or who won the expansion, because first to finish doesn't really mean anything. Okay, all it has ever meant for years and years, well before the no more flags and this and that, all it means is how much time you spent on beta and got how many more minutes of developer raids and this and that. Okay, that's all that ever has meant.
So what
so
should
it
you use?
so the only way to really level the playing field is to have like a speedruns review board. Okay, if you want to claim that EverQuest is competitive, well, congratulations. There's millions of gamers that have already figured this out for you. Okay, there's millions of example games that you could use to determine what is the timing or the scoring mechanism such that you can determine who is the best guild, right? Because all guilds, in my opinion, if you're having fun, are the best guild, right? That's all that matters at the end of the day. But if you want to go to the competitive level, you need an objective measure that can over time weed out all these random number, or random variables, you know, um, like everybody pretty much knows Super Mario, right?
Yeah.
And they may not know specifically,
Like the 21 frame rules.
yeah, all
Yeah.
these frame rules and things like this. They probably don't watch Summoning Salt and, Cosmic and these, not everybody does. Okay. So those are some people that, are really into Super Mario speed running and, you know, cover the how does speed running this game work? What are all the technical tricks, the flagpole glitch, the, warp glitches that let you go down the pipe and then you're in the warp zone and all kinds of stuff like that.
Summoning Salt's
Okay.
video on EverQuest would be like, you zone into plane of sky, you type /tar Aya Vishan and
Yeah.
/warp T or
Yeah,
slash
yeah.
farton, and you
Right.
win.
Right. So EverQuest needs to have some kind of verification level because cheating is possible. Okay. We can't dismiss that cheating is a factor if we're going to talk about competitive things. And there's a lot of people involved in EverQuest rating.
Mhm.
So the bare minimum proof would be, okay, whatever time period you're measuring, you've got to have some kind of recording.
Mhm.
Okay, a video recording of
Start to
gameplay.
finish, whole thing.
Yeah, start to finish, unbroken, unedited. And you also probably need to have some kind of parse submitted as well so
Yeah.
that you can look at, does this make sense? Okay, oh, they only did 10 million damage on their parse, but the mob has 4 billion hit points.
So at
Right?
that point, do you eliminate? Like, are we doing like glitchless and like standard? Because I think cheesing content is kind of like a foundational hallmark of the heritage of EQ rating. Not
I
to
think
say cheating, but cheese. Like player exploits.
I think as long as it is an accepted strategy,
Mm-hmm.
which would be like having an accepted category. Okay. In speedrunning, there's a lot of categories for things, right? Like, what's a like there's always like a
Any percent.
shirtless percent
Oh, right. Yeah.
or like hatless percent or things like that for Mario, in games where Mario can remove his hat. Um, you know, do we need to break it down that much? Maybe, maybe not. If, you know, fighting Vox in the safe hall is an accepted strategy, although faster or slower strategy, okay, it probably just goes in the regular category. Um, there's been instances since uh, raids have become instants, like you start the script and the raid immediately ends and you get loot. Those types of things need to be thrown out and be like, those don't count for records.
Right.
Congratulations on your loot.
Right.
So there is that's why you have to have a committee that decides that, hey, this is allowed or this is not allowed. And that's what people that have already done the speed running work in other games have figured out, right? Like so in EQ right now, we're basically doing a entire tier at a time category.
Mm-hmm.
There's no category for after all the tiers come out that what's the time for you to do all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And something we mentioned much earlier in the stream or the interview here or podcast is that, oh geez, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, we've been going for quite some time, but it has to do with the timing. Shoot, gosh, I get to talking to this and I get lost because there's so many ideas running through my head about
Yeah.
it.
Well, I think it's a good
Yeah.
idea, but how do you do, like, in my experience, there are so many personality conflicts that getting the council put together where you're like, dude, you can't put True North on the council because that guy's an asshole. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. How do you get past the personality issue of it? The
Well,
people who would want to be on the council would be the same people who are part of the categories competing for it, right?
right. So currently, Behemoth, I guess, runs Elite Gamers Lounge or whatever, which is what most people are using to determine things.
Yeah.
Um, so are they trusting that he's accurately reporting things, or the guild leaders are accurately reporting things? I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Like in speed running, you have like, let's say you play Super Mario and you submit a time that's like 18 minutes.
Mhm.
Okay. 18 minutes is pretty slow in Super Mario.
Probably not going to be a lot of scrutiny on it,
Or not a lot of scrutiny.
right?
So in EverQuest, if the top guild is finishing the raid in 6 minutes and you report a time of 31 minutes, okay, we'll probably just say, okay, that's fine. Okay. And get to it later. Right. But if, you know, the top three guilds are like 6 minutes, 31 seconds, 6 minutes, 30 seconds, and then you got a 6:27 in there, you're going to need to verify those things,
Right.
y- you know, um, or you're going to need to pay a lot more attention to things like total damage done, you know, the timestamps in the log, do they match up, stuff like that.
The other thing is, like, how do you determine acceptable strategies on content that's being done for the first time ever?
Well, if you're not measuring beta time, well, now all the strategies for beta are posted to the beta forum, so the strategies are known even before the raids are
But
requestable.
you don't keep any back pocket stuff that you're hoping won't get patched out. Some little cheese that you know.
I've never experienced that as being a thing in any guild that I've been in, as far as like a cheese that I would say, where it's like, okay, if we do this, the entire set of ads doesn't spawn or something. I'm just
Wasn't there
trying.
something recently where, like, if you just let the guy die, the extra waves didn't spawn or something like that? There was some way to speed something up pretty significantly by like doing something you didn't that wasn't intended.
I don't know of
I wish I
specifically.
I wish I had it on me so I could speak to it a little bit better, but
Yeah,
meh.
I don't know. Um, if if the event continued to progress, and so I mean, you'd have to evaluate it. Like, if that's not being patched out, right? So that must be an allowed intention at some point, okay? And you know, you if you want to, you can create two categories for something like that, especially if it is then later patched. You have to have times that are before the patch that eventually fall off the leaderboard or into their own category.
Right. It becomes a real big mess because of the frequency of patching with
Yes.
MMOs. Like we actually have a speedrun page for like classic through pop because
Yep.
TLPs, they get a fresh squeeze at them every year, right? But the problem is there have been so many patches, even across TLPs, that it's like it's become a wash on trying to compare them.
Mhm.
And I don't, maybe someone could do it, but you end up having a situation where you just compare the server stats by itself because the patches are so different from one year to the next. Doing 20-year-old content, it still gets changed every time.
Yeah, it's a job. I mean, it's a thankless job. It's like being a Discord or Reddit mod on a really big Discord server. Guild Discords are tiny.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't really get paid for either thing, and no one says thank you. You know,
quite the opposite.
Yeah, they're just like, I fucking hate mods and all this stuff, and
Yeah.
they don't understand all the work that's going into it. Like, just trying to figure out how to organize everything for everybody. And if you've got more than one, cook in the kitchen, it gets even doubly more confused when you're talking about 1,000 or 10,000 people, or more that are involved with it.
So I'm one of the moderators for the EverQuest subreddit, which is a really
Yes.
small subreddit. I mean, I was blown away when I started by like a subreddit of this size. How many people are trying to sell fucking t-shirts, scam
Yeah.
t-shirts? Like you're not really going to get a t-shirt. It's just there's like so much spam and scam on Reddit
Yeah.
that is filtered out by mods and stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we do go down that route, yes, it would be a more accurate way to time it. And is it something that we should do if we want to be competitive? Probably, or claim that it is competitive, because in the current state, first to the finish poll, Nagafin's left testicle finished on day one ahead of some guilds, that are actually trying to do it. Okay, I just say that as kind of like your no-name backwater
Hmm.
guild. If
Yeah.
people don't get that reference, there's no guild actually called that. Please don't make it. You'll probably get in trouble.
Right. It's too late. It's out. It's out there. I guarantee
It's out there.
someone's going to send me a screenshot with Nagafin's left testicle after this. About 3 hours from the time we stopped the interview.
Probably, yes.
Now, what do other MMOs? I'm like an EQ purist, okay? So I don't know what WoW does, but when I watch it on, well, like I see the Twitch streams when they have their expansion like every 10 years that the World of Warcraft does expansions, and it seems like it's like world first is the meta. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
why hasn't the game that is like, kind of sets the standard nowadays, why haven't they moved into that speed run?
There is WoW speedruns.
I mean, I've seen like the speed runs of clearing the expansion. Like I've seen the times on speedrun.com and stuff for that kind of stuff, but it seems far less important and hyped up than the race to be the first person to ever have beaten that expansion.
There's far fewer people that are doing the testing of the content in WoW. Like in EQ, every guild is doing beta that's wanting to compete.
Okay.
Like almost every guild has at least one developer raid that's trying to be competitive.
Now, when you say developer raid, you just mean a developer is side saddling with you guys while you attempt the beta raids, right?
So I've been doing, how long have I been doing beta raids? Jeez. I want to say since like Secrets of Fade were. Um, Initially, for a long while, the developers would just type, in chat and stuff, and would be there asking for feedback, and kind of the guild leaders and officers were responsible for giving that feedback. Um, and in more recent years, in the guilds that I've been in, it's been the developers are joining Discord, Ventrilo, TeamSpeak, and saying, "Hold on just a minute, I will fix that." And there's a very positive feedback cycle going.
I mean, that sounds good. It sounds healthy. But I guess the problem is, who are you doing it for? Like, if the entire rating and if every guild that raids is going to be fucking around on beta, how is it different than shipping it live?
Right, exactly. Like,
You may
but
as well just
the,
let them beta test it on live when it launches.
so when the raids first become available on beta, um, you may have to jump through a few hoops to actually get them requested or things like that. Might have to make a forum post about it to get enabled, all these kinds of things. Um, you know, they are not tuned. And I remember we were doing, I guess, an NOS beta event with the Shiknar Queen or whatever. And the things had like, I don't know, 50 billion hit points each.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like just sitting there and we're beating on the mob, the full SR DPS going through like 4 burn rotations per mob, trying to down it to see more stuff.
So
And I'm
Abzor
just like, yeah.
Abzor makes all the raids, right?
Uh I don't know right now, but I've known that Aristo has made raids. I've known Ingreth has made raids in the past, and Absol. Yeah,
I mean,
they've all done
if
them.
we got devs who are raiding already in hardcore raid guilds, literally the top guilds in the world, why don't those same devs just be the devs who like make the raids? Because they probably have a more keyed in idea of what would be balanced, right? Rather than the guys who like pure creation and don't raid.
Well, maybe there's discussions that do happen around balance and design and things like that. That maybe the developers or that are or are not in whatever guilds, that are rating, are actually giving feedback because maybe they do other things. Maybe they're artists or they're the customer service people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or they're the QA, or you know, maybe they don't have the skill set, or their skill set is better used on other things.
Hmm.
But maybe that's not their wheelhouse.
Right. I wouldn't say the current situation is like a problem. You know what I mean? But I would say it's an area where I hope they find a way to improve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I'm into retro games, so you know, I like difficulty to start at Battletoads and go up from there.
That's yeah, when
Like,
was the last time you like Miradis, I guess, right?
yeah, I loved Maraudus. That was the most fun. Like, that's when I was applying to SR, and like I just destroyed the Bane parse, you know, and then they're like quickly moving me to like the team that deals with the hallways. They're like, okay, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I wish content was much harder as well, without
yeah,
being necessarily grindier. That's a fine thread to walk too.
yeah. Uh, I played a MMO very recently, which is part of the reason I kind of ducked out during NOS, and I loved the difficulty. I hated the grinding. I mean, the raids were just like insanity hard,
Hmm.
and they were toxically hard. Okay, like where people quit the game, like over the community being so toxic and gatekeeping towards letting you go on the raid at all. Yeah. So there are that is a fine line to walk.
Yeah.
And you probably don't want to be at that edge either, because then in a game like EverQuest, you lose all the players. Is that what I want? A little bit, yes. But is that what's good for the game? I don't believe so.
Well, that's why we need those hard modes. We need like mythic EverQuest rates for the people who really want to challenge, and that could be the standard. Like, who cares if you're the first normal mode completion, right? Like,
Yeah.
you want to race for world first mythic, and I think that would solve a lot of those problems kind of perfectly, right? Because the super banner helps. The super banner helps for those casual guilds that
Yeah.
that need it and stuff. I think things are moving in the right direction in a lot of ways, and I think like on a long enough timeline, EverQuest is going to get there. I just
Yeah.
I want to still be alive when we get there.
So I will reveal that maybe something I shouldn't about the super banner. I was actually in the conversation where we came up with that ideation, because I was trying to help steer us for a hard mode, or to make the raids harder and just have a way to make them easier, a few months in.
Right? Yeah. I think
Um,
it's a good idea. I hope it doesn't run in the opposite direction where they're like, "Wow, look how popular the super banner is." Obviously, they want even easier content. You know what I mean? I hope it's seen as a vehicle for being able to add more challenging content because there's kind of an out for other guilds.
Yeah, and then also in the group game, there's a fine line too, and I think TBL was just over the line for EverQuest for your average player. Okay, it was too difficult, and flagging was a problem to be able to experience the expansion, because you could get to like one zone, two zones without doing difficult missions that you need like a perfect group for. You
Right.
know, yeah,
Yeah, I've heard like too, like class balance is always like a tough thing. Like clerics kind of like why a cleric over a shaman half the time right now on live, right?
yeah. Our raid force runs like 2 to 3 clerics at most in total.
Right.
Like I've seen us clear all raids in OS and in Lorien Song with a single cleric.
Well, so in EverQuest, especially live EverQuest, like 90% of healing is overhealing, right?
Yeah,
You're basically like predictive healing. We're healing just in case, right? And there's like a lot of rains and AoE heals and stuff. And it's like you don't want to nerf people, but you want like I don't know. All the other healers have a piece of what the cleric does, but the cleric doesn't really have like elements of the shaman kit, right?
yeah.
Because it's kind of like the purest. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but I want to see all the classes get some love.
Well, I mean, they could do things for clerics that maybe aren't raid centric that make the character more fun to play outside of raids without like ruining the cleric kit. They could do things like, okay, well, the cleric casts, Padre Pound Ass buff on themselves, and all of a sudden, their water sprinkler becomes like this massive, damaging weapon, and the cleric is like a competitive DPS player in a party if they do that, but then all their healing is like reduced or just can't land on other people, in a group situation,
Yeah.
and it just can't hit raid mobs. I mean, you could come up with 100 conditions of things
Yeah.
like that, but there are ideas like that, that maybe people could float or think about.
Well, the problem is like the players ruin it because you're like, why would I take the DPS cleric over the necromancer?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But if you have a cleric, I mean, there used to be nothing better than having a cleric doing heals, and I think,
It's still that way on TLP. You're just like
yeah,
more clerics. Yes. Like, can you press the button? Please join the guild.
yeah. Uh, but at a certain point, it just became like, yeah, shamans and druids and paladins encroaching on that space.
Yeah. And I think paladins really benefited for it because for a long time, paladins just kind of sucked.
They're the worst class in EverQuest.
Yeah.
Oh, like they're worse than Ranger. I'm sorry. I like my pally friends. I'm just speaking objectively. But the persona feature was created for you.
Ooh. Ooh. It's rough.
Oh, jeez.
They're so flavorful, though. There's nothing cooler than being a paladin.
Adder Hill and SR is going to get so mad at me.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right,
damn.
for real this time. We extended it by like 40 minutes with my inane questioning,
Yeah.
but for real this time, we'll wrap up here. Zoycite,
Yeah.
again, like, thank you so much. It was awesome having you
Sure.
on here. I really genuinely, a lot of times I just lie and say that I like talking to people on
Sure.
here, but no, I really, really enjoyed talking to you for
Sure.
real. So appreciate it a lot.
Well, I'll try to answer any questions you have, or if you get a question from your fan base that they want to ask me, just relay it, and I'll try to get an answer for you. I mean, I don't have really anything, like I said, to hide, and I like to tell people about things because being a game dev is a lot of people's dream job, and they don't know what you need to do, or what it's like.
Yeah.
They think they can't do it, but maybe with the right advice or encouragement, maybe they could.
Yeah.
We always need more game devs in the industry.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Zoycite, if you want, I would rather just have you like come on the podcast in like 8 months or something. You know what I mean? When we've had like
Sure.
new, fresh issues or something. But if you join my Discord, the people who listen will ask you a billion questions in there.
Okay.
If you want to take the heat, though, they'll ask you some dumb shit. So be ready
Yeah.
to answer a lot of PvP questions.
Okay. Sure. Just send me the link.
Yeah.
I'll answer if I can. I mean, I'm not afraid of hard questions. I'm just afraid of questions that could lose me my current job or get alienated you know, from like EverQuest entirely.
Right.
I still value a lot of the friendships that I made while I was a developer.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. All right. With that said, this is Zaide, Zoycite, and DramaQuest out. Folks, have a nice night.